What if the solution to a massive global pest problem wasn't cooked up in some high-tech lab, but was growing right in our backyards? Today, we're going to dive into this really fascinating student project that looks to nature for a safer and, honestly, a smarter way to control rodent populations. So to really get why this research is so important, you first have to understand just how huge this problem is. And get this statistic from the study just puts it all into perspective. We're not talking about a few mice stealing some cheese. In Asia alone, rodents eat enough grain to feed 200 million people for an entire year. That's a staggering hit to the world's food supply. And the search for a better way to handle this? Well, it comes from this Master of Science project. It's just a great reminder that sometimes it's dedicated academic research driven by a single student that can take on these enormous real-world challenges. Okay, so how do we usually fight this battle against pests? Well, that's where we run into a major issue, something that research calls the poison dilemma. For a long time now, our main weapon has been a certain type of chemical, anticoagulant rodenticides. They're pretty much the go-to solution all over the world. And yeah, they work. But as we're about to see, they come with a really steep and often hidden price. So how do these things actually work? Well, it's not like an instant poison. What they do is they mess with an animal's ability to clot blood. So any animal that eats the baits, well, it dies slowly over several days from massive internal bleeding. It's pretty grim. And here is the absolute crux of the problem. The poison doesn't just stop with the rodent. See, these chemicals are what's known as PBTs. That means they're persistent, they bioaccumulate, and they're toxic. They just hang around in the environment, they build up in the food chain, and that leads to the tragic secondary poisoning of predators. We're talking owls, eagles, other animals that prey on these weakened rats. So this whole problem of secondary poisoning is exactly what this research set out to solve. And that brings us to the really cool part of this experiment, the hunt for nature's lethal candidates. This is it. This is the big question driving this entire study. Is it possible we could find a powerful, effective poison that's just hidden in plain sight? One that comes from a plant and might be a whole lot safer for the rest of the ecosystem. All right, so the investigation lined up 5 potential candidates. First on the list is Dieffenbachia. It's a super common houseplant, also called dumb cane, and yeah, that name kind of gives away its toxic reputation. Candidate number 2 is the camphor tree. You've probably heard of this one. It's known for producing that really strong, aromatic smell that's used in all kinds of stuff. Our third contender is the pencil tree. It's a really unique-looking succulent, all stick-like branches and a toxic, milky sap. Next up, the neem tree. Now, this is a plant that's already famous in traditional medicine and organic farming for its really powerful antibacterial and pesticidal qualities. And the final candidate in our lineup is the one we all know best, the simple, everyday leaf from a lemon plant. Okay, so we've got our 5 suspects. But how in the world do you go from a plant leaf to a potential poison? Well, that brings us to the extraction process. The process itself was pretty methodical. First, they'd wash and dry the leaves, then grind them up into a really fine powder. That powder was then mixed with ethanol and shaken up for several days to pull out all the active chemical compounds. After filtering it all, you're left with this concentrated extract, which they then mixed with flour to create the bait tablets. And I love this because it shows you just how hands-on this research really was. You can literally see the journey right here, from grinding the raw leaves by hands with a mortar and pestle, all the way to the extraction going on in the lab. So, the experiments were run, the baits were put to the test, and now it is time for the moment of truth. Let's get to the plant-based verdict. So, after all that work, what happened? Out of our 5 plant contenders, did any of them actually work as a rodenticide in the lab? Oh yeah, the results were really clear. 3 of the 5 plants showed some serious promise. The extracts from the camphor tree and the pencil tree were both effective, but the clear winner, at least in the lab, was Dieffenbachia, or dumb cane. It showed a really high toxic effect. And hey, knowing what doesn't work is just as important in science, right? The study also found that the extracts from the lemon and neem leaves, they didn't show any rodent-killing effects in these particular tests. That's a super important finding. Look, getting great results in a sterile lab is one thing. That's great. But the real test, the one that truly matters, is always this. How does it hold up out in the real world? How did this plant-based poison do in an actual field test? The answer? It was a stunning success. Get this. The extract managed to reduce the rodent population in the field by 67.7%. This isn't just a win on paper. It's a practical, effective result that shows this natural approach has some serious potential. You know, this whole project is just an incredible example of the power of looking to nature for answers. I mean, if a single student's research can uncover a workable, safer alternative to a common chemical poison, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other powerful, natural solutions are out there, just hiding in plain sight, waiting for us to find them?